Let's talk about the SAVE Act. So this is an act that would require voter ID. You'd have to have either a passport or a birth certificate. It would get rid of a lot of mail-in voting, and then there's some other provisions in there that, well, again, we might have disagreement over. So, Representative Greene, what do you think about the Save America Act?
I'm a big believer in secure elections, and I think that's important for all Americans, Republicans and Democrats. I am a big believer in ID, voter ID. Here we live in a country where you have to show an ID to buy cigarettes or nicotine products. You have to show an ID to go. You have to show your birth certificate to get a driver's license. You have to show an ID to buy alcohol. You have to show an ID to do many things in this country. You even have to show an ID to get welfare. I think it's incredibly important that American citizens only vote in our American elections, and I think it's incredibly important for people to be able to prove that they're an American citizen and that they have the right to vote. So I'm a big supporter in the Save America Act, except I'm a big critic of the Republicans in the Senate who can't get their act together because of the filibuster. So yes, I believe in election integrity. I believe in voter ID, and I think that's something that should be passed.
Senator Turner, do you think that's wrong?
I mean, I certainly believe in transparency and making sure that we protect our elections. I mean, in 2014, Jink, you may remember I ran for Secretary of State in the great state of Ohio because I believe so much in expanding the franchise and not compressing the franchise. Many states in this country already have a type of voter ID. What the Save America Act would do, would make it more onerous for people to be able to vote. The point that the Congresswoman made about people having to show a driver's license, well, under this bill, a driver's license would not be good enough. Birth certificates, passports, we know that passports could cost upwards of $180 or so. So that is a type of 21st century pay your way to vote. If we believe that voting is a fundamental right, then government could be going in the opposite direction, which is to ensure that we enfranchise more American citizens to vote. This is a solution in search of a problem because we know that there is slim to none by all studies, all reports, all accounts from folks both on the right and on the left in terms of people who monitor voter impersonation. It really rarely, if ever, happens in the United States of America. And if it happens, every state in our union have laws against it, and there are consequences, there are fines, and there's jail time. And there is not a lot of bonus for somebody to walk into a polling place to try to impersonate somebody. In other words, what do they get out of that? Compared to if somebody wanted to rob a bank, if they're successful, then they know they get the money. What do you get for trying to impersonate somebody when you go and vote? It rarely happens. When it happens, people are caught. And the states, what happened to all these states' rights? The states have rules and regulations and penalties. What the president is doing is an overreach, and he is trying to scare the American people. Just as they're doing with this war, they're doing this to make people think, oh, those people, that somebody that is unqualified to vote in America is somehow trying to vote in this country and take over. You know, Jink and Congresswoman, I just had the opportunity a couple of days ago to talk to a group of Americans who live abroad. They're called the Dems abroad. And I know we got Republicans abroad too. But I had a chance to talk to a portion of the leadership. And one of the things that was animating them was this Save America Act. And what they shared with me, a portion of their fear is the mailing. You know, will mailing be delayed and impact them? Will the rules on mail-in ballots change in such a way that it impacts them? And then also the birth certificate thing. And I asked them, I said, well, what is it? Because everybody should have a birth certificate. If you're American, you should be able to show the birth certificate. And they explained that a lot of Americans abroad might not necessarily have that birth certificate on hand, might not necessarily know where to find it, and that it just causes a lot of trepidation. So if the president and this Congress and my conservative sisters and brothers and family and friends really want to enfranchise people instead of disenfranchise people, then let's come up with ways to make it easier for those who are qualified to vote to do so, just as they are trying to make it so that the men, forcing the enlistment now, bringing back that, then they could do the same thing to help America's vote. But it is really a solution that there's really not a problem.
So Representative Greene, I want to give you more time on that. So folks say, look, there's two options here, passport or birth certificate. 9% of Americans don't have a birth certificate. Plus, when people get married, they don't have the same name anymore. Getting a new one is going to cost a lot of time and money. 50% of Americans don't have passports, and now they're starting to worry if that's going to affect Republicans more than Democrats. So what do you think about those concerns?
I think I have a lot more faith in the American people than you guys might. The Americans are extremely resourceful. They're very capable of getting their own birth certificates. They're very capable of having passports. Nina, that is so cool that there's Dems abroad. I think that's awesome. I don't know if there's Republicans abroad, but there's one thing I know about Americans living abroad is they definitely have their passports, and I would say it's very highly likely that most of them also have their birth certificates. I think voting is such an incredible right, and we want to make sure that illegal aliens are not voting in our elections, and it has happened. And once again, I don't think it's a problem for Americans to be able to get their birth certificate or their passport. Let's look at Americans can do anything when they really set their mind to it, and it's not that difficult to get a birth certificate or a passport. And I don't think this is something that's too much to ask. I know we disagree on this issue, but I certainly think it's important that people have identification, especially when they're carrying out the incredible right of casting their vote for the people that represent us. And I'll say that's so important because I would love to see a bunch of the leaders in Washington that represent us and many of the people that I served with, I would like to see them voted out of office. So I think it would be great if Americans definitely can make sure they have their birth certificate. They need it for many other things, and make sure they have a passport and can prove their citizenship when they cast their vote for the leaders they want to represent them.
But I certainly agree with Congresswoman on a lot of these Congresspeople need to be voted out. So I'm with you on that. But is it that the states who have voting identification rules right now as they exist, is it your belief that those rules across the states are not strong enough, that the states somehow are derelict in their duties to protect the integrity of elections?
I'm not accusing states. Listen, I'm a mom, and when I registered my kids for school all along, we always had to show a birth certificate. So, and I bring that up as an example because this isn't really that complicated. And once again, I think election integrity is so incredibly important. It's not too much to ask of Americans to have the proper form of ID and be able to prove that they're a citizen of this country when they're casting their vote in our federal elections.
But they have to prove it right now. I mean, I do want the viewers to know that people have to prove who they are right now in the United States of America before they go to vote. And the Brennan Center did one of the best studies about voter impersonation fraud, because that's what we're talking about right now. And basically what they surmise is that you have a greater chance of being struck by lightning than you do to have somebody impersonate another person in the voting booth. It is onerous what is happening. And that's not, I'm not saying this is onerous. If it's a fundamental right, and we know that at times in this country, that fundamental right was taken away from people who look like me, who had to count the bubbles, the amount of bubbles in a bar of soap, or the number of jelly beans, or had to constantly always prove that they were worthy to be able to vote, which is why the African-American community in particular fought so hard for voting rights. Mm-hmm. My point is this, Congresswoman, you and I agree that I don't want anybody who's not eligible to vote to be able to vote. We're together on that. What I also do not want is government to make it harder, and government to amp people up and to scare people as to somehow there's this scourge of illegal, of people who are undocumented or uneligible to vote in our country. Study after study.
Well, actually,
people
Nina,
who are experts on this.
Nina, if I can, I
said
have an example. It does happen. My ex-husband had his vote stolen in 2020. Someone mailed in an absentee ballot in his name. So when he showed up to vote in person, they told him, Mr. Greene, you've already voted by absentee ballot. And he said, I absolutely have not. I have not voted by absentee ballot. And they had it in the Secretary of State system that someone had voted in his name with an absentee ballot, and he had not. And he had to sign a waiver saying, relinquishing that ballot so that he was allowed to vote in person in the election of 2020. So I know you're quoting some statistics, but I've got a personal story of someone I know. And there was a whole line of people there in the Floyd County Election Center that day, an entire line that were having the same issue. They were told that an absentee ballot had been cast in their name. And so the purpose of the Save America Act is to make sure that our elections are more secure and safe, not to reject anyone based on their race or certainly make it harder on anyone's life. But I think when it comes to our elections, it's definitely worth it. And I just wanted to share that personal story with you because it's something that I witnessed and has happened to someone I know.
Okay. I respect that story. I respect that story. But this is the point. There's systems in place to catch it. That states are doing a great job right now, and in-person voter fraud is very, very rare. And if and when it happens, there are systems in place, is my main argument. But Congresswoman, I certainly respect that story that you just told.
So Senator Turner, last thing here, because Representative Greene said she would get rid of the filibuster. Now, when the Democrats were in charge, I know a lot of progressives were in favor of getting rid of the filibuster. So what do you think? Is she right about that?
Voted up or voted down. I mean, we most of us know the history of the filibuster. It too is rooted in a racist history. I mean, straight it up, voted up and down. The Democrats should have used that tool when they had the power, but they were too cowardice to do it. So yeah, get rid of the filibuster as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so you guys don't agree on the SAVE Act, but you do agree on getting rid of the filibuster so we could have a majority
Yes.
rule. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.